Welcome to the Dragon's Den. I am your venerable host Orochi, and today we are going to talk about the only thing that really matters. Specifically, dragons. And even more specifically, Pathfinder 2 dragons. Watching one of the recent streams done by the Battle Zoo team, Stephen Glicker commented that their next release they wanted to do staggered ancestry releases, specifically because he believes, usually correctly, that people get into something new and it's cool and it's the new hotness for a few weeks, maybe a month or two, and then people stop talking about it. The discourse of it dies down and then it becomes old hat and people move on to new stuff. So I'm here to counter that, and I'm going to specifically go through, and every video I do for Pathfinder 2 is going to specifically involve dragons, because that is what I enjoy, and that is what I do. So today, we're going to start off and do a character build. We are going to dive a little bit of a deep dive into one of the classes. I'm not going to go through every feat super deeply. I'm just going to hit up on great builds. And today we're specifically going to make a dragon fighter. This is going to be split up into 3 different sections. The first section is just us making a first level character. And then you can take that and run with it, and it will be good for whatever you want to do. The second longer portion will be us making every level up to a 20th level build. And then the third section will be redoing that and expanding it by making a 20th level build that also includes free archetype. Because I love free archetype, and it's actually hard for me to play without it because it just gives so many options. Even though, yes, it also gives you very powerful options. You can min-max with it. It's a tool that you can min-max with, but you don't need to. You can just grab super cool, flavorful stuff with it if you really want to, and it's not that big of a deal. It won't really break anything. So it's really up to you if that's what you want to use it for. You can completely not do that and just make a good flavorful build. Just take archetypes that fit the flavor you want instead of the power you want. This is mostly going to be a min-max power sort of build, but I will specifically note on the things that are keystones to the build's power so that you know to keep those and you can dump some other stuff. Because when using free archetype, there are plenty of options for just putting in cool, flavorful stuff. And we will add that since we will be using it later. I don't think we desperately need anything else right now. You can use the Die Hard. It really depends on what your DM is going to allow you to do with it. But let's keep this fairly simple and see. We definitely don't want that. So we want to go up here. Strength is going to be your best thing for everything, and this is all you need to do. Just organize stuff by either the primary or whatever secondary skill you want for your class and build, and then these are all your options. You can take any of these to fill your flavor. And then even if you don't like any of these or don't even like any of them that are specifically for whatever secondary skill you want, if you don't desperately need the secondary skill to really finish your build, then you can take any background you want as filler because all of them give a free boost, and just take that boost as the one you need. Pathfinder 2 makes it very easy to get done the thing you want. But we're going to just basically make a beat-down brawler character, your standard fear-inducing dragon. So let us find something. I hate choosing these ones because they seem like this is what you're going to choose when you have no clue what you want to do, because it's just you were trained to murder people. It's the murder hobo option. It's always what I view it as, and I hate that I have to choose it for a lot of my things, because a lot of these are very much created in the mind of somebody in a society made these, in a very specific society that's trying to imagine what, similar societies would make. It's like, okay, well, what would a dragon character choose as their background? Like, almost none of these fit something that a dragon would do. So that's always an interesting thing. Hired killer isn't too bad. I always love prisoner, but I have a bit of a love for the flavor of slavery. I love slavery stories. I love playing slaves who then get free, and then you can take revenge, and it can be your whole thing of being anti-slavery. I think that's fantastic character beats, because you can do so much with it. As long as you do it right. As long as you're doing it from that viewpoint of, I've been there, and that scarred me, and is a big selling point of what my character is. But let's just go with the super easy warrior, just because it's super easy. And then for heritage, we are going to choose the biggest, meanest dragon there is with reds, because they specifically get a feat that we need to pick up. And also, if you're going to make a fear build that's the big, badass dragon, then why not make a red dragon, right? Gold would work equally well, because I'm fairly sure they get the feat that we're looking for as well. And then we can go here. What do we want? We generally just want strength and constitution, but we need 1 point in dexterity to max out our AC. And then we want wisdom and charisma for our fear. And that should be good. And our class is always going to be athletics. And then we need to choose intimidation, which we already have. And what else? This is pretty much just choose whatever kind of good stuff you're going to want, because you're probably not going to be really great at most things. We're going to max athletics and intimidation. Those are 2 givens, so that we can throw people around when we need to, and we can scare people when we need to. So we only have 1 thing left that we can max out. So diplomacy is always a cool option, but most diplomacy checks you can put intimidation in instead, and instead of getting in people's good graces, you're just the asshole that forces your will. That may or may not backfire on you catastrophically, but there it is. We'll be getting decent wisdom, so if you want to waste some of your skill feats, you could do medicine as well. And then choose something that we're not going to bump up. This, what do we want here? Dragon lore is always cool for me. I love the lore skills. Most of the rest of these aren't great. Horde Hauler is interesting. I think it's slightly above par, but not in any meaningful way that will really give you a step up. Change shape is always fantastic, especially if you have a GM who's against like letting you play a dragon from level 1. You can go like, oh, well, I'll pretend to be human for a while, and then I'll reveal my secret identity to the party. I really like that as a backup, instead of having your DM try to figure out, how the hell do I get a dragon into a party? Because realistically, how do you get a dragon into a party of regular characters, Like it's just more work. Period. It's just more work, and you have to do it. So you do that, and then as long as you're not using Dragon Die Hard, you can use human shaped gear and stuff and just fit in, and it will work. Level 1 for fighters is pretty terrible unless you are going a double slice build, because double slice is the most powerful first level skip feat for fighters. It is ridiculous, but it's specifically only for dual wielding, and that's your entire build right there is this feat. You have to build the rest of your character around this is how you fight, and this is how you always fight for the rest of your career, and you need to just double and triple down on that. None of these other feats lock you into a fighting style, really. They're just interesting options that, like, power attack is slightly better on two-handers, but it's in and of itself not a fantastic feat, because double slice is just power. It's just you attack twice at the same attack modifier for 2 actions. Like, it is ridiculously powerful. None of these other things are straight up power modifiers. They're action economy modifiers, or finding ways to get benefits. Like Stagging Strike is cool. You make things flat-footed as long as you stay within melee reach of them. Like, obviously, if you're using a shield, you want to choose this, and that sort of is a fighting style. But you can also combo using shields with double slice, so it's not entirely locking you out of everything else. And this is for ranged. And it's sort of, yes, if you're making a ranged build, then you're probably going to be not doing power attack, two-handed kind of stuff. But you might be able to squeeze in some melee stuff, double slice with some finesse weapons. That can work. But in general, if you're a melee character, you're probably going to be bad at range, and vice versa. Just because of the types of weapons you have to use for both, they'll have lower damage die. So it's all a give and take. If you want the most powerful melee, you'll be going two-handed and you will not be good at ranged. If you want to be good at ranged, your melee will suffer. Range damage is generally fairly weak because it has the option of being ranged, which means you can technically more reliably get better hits off because you don't have to move around all the time, and you can also shoot flying stuff. So it's sort of built into the system that ranged characters will feel really weak for like the first 8 to 10 levels, and then once you start more reliably, and only if the adventure you're on calls for it or your GM puts them in, once you start fighting ranged and flying stuff, you can just be like, oh, cool, I have an advantage now. I can just target these things, whereas martial characters have terrain and stuff to deal with, or they might just stand under a flying thing, go, well, I literally do nothing right now, and I just die. So those are things to consider when you're starting your fighter, is like, do you want to be good at a variety? Do you want just pure power, or do you want to be good in a variety of situations? Which I think it's too bad that you have to give up damage to be able to do ranged and melee decently, because it sort of feels bad for the first like 6 levels when you're almost always fighting stuff that melee characters just walk up to and beat the bejesus out of, while you're just like, hey, I'm plinking away at stuff with extremely subpar damage. But we are going to be making a super power melee build, so this is probably the best for that sort of thing. It requires you have a free hand, which as a dragon, once you stop shapeshifting, your hands are always going to be free because you're going to be biting things. So that'll work. We want to be medium because we're going to be big and intimidating, and our resistance is going to be fire. Whether you choose gold dragon or red dragon, it's going to be fire. Then you can fill this out however you want. This cool stuff. You can put notes for how you want your character to be. So lots of room for flavor stuff right there. And our AC is going to be terrible. Unless we get some human armor when we're shapeshifted. Which is what you're going to have to do, because otherwise you're going to be getting splattered into the ground. So we need some medium armor, which will probably be scale mail. We'll still be missing 1 point for the dex, because we won't be able to afford splint, I don't think. How much is splint? 13 gold. We start with how much? 15 gold. So that's a no, because a weapon is at least 1 gold. So we're going to go for that scale mail. Because that's 4. That's a big difference. Oops. I meant purchase. Sometimes when you mess up, it bites you. And then it continues to bite you. Now we're going to buy. Yes. And then we're going to need a random two-handed weapon. What you're going to want. Proficiencies. Martial. We're probably just going to grab a great axe. So let's just go for G. Although I do love me some glaive. But great axe is pretty fantastic. It's interesting that great swords have always been like the primary weapon in like 3rd edition and 4th edition and stuff. Whereas swords kind of suck in Pathfinder too. Like their critical specialization is that they flat foot things, which is terrible. If you as a martial character cannot find other ways, especially with your entire group, to have your enemy flat-footed reliably every turn, or at least every other turn, then you're doing something wrong. Like that's a step 1 of how to tactic with your party is, what is your party going to do to keep things flat-footed most of the time? Reliably, every turn, flat-footed. And if the option is flanking, that's a decent, hey, I have no other options, so I'm going to flank. It puts whoever's doing the flanking in danger because they can be counter-flanked by other enemies. But if that's all you got, then put your fighter into the flanking position because they have good AC and good health. But otherwise, you definitely want to try and have flanking options. There is... Maybe it's not in this. There was an yeah. I think it's only in Fantasy Grounds that has it, an option for the starter kits. But all the gear is just going to be, probably 5 to 8 gold worth of all the things you need to just survive wandering around by yourself without lodging and all that good stuff. So we don't really need any of that. We don't have spells, we don't have pets. We just hit things. So there you go. There's your first level red dragon pretending to be human fighter who's just likes to hit things and scare people. And that's ready to go, and you can play that. So now, we're going to continue on and go up through the levels and make fun stuff. Mostly we're going to probably stick to class abilities. Lunge is good if you're using weapons. Yeah, because it requires a melee weapon, which is unfortunate because once we go to using dragon strikes all the time, biting and stuff, we're not going to get that. Intimidating strike is really cool that it can do this, but for 2 actions, it's literally just, well, you're making attack and then making a frighten check, except for the check is just the hit. So you're spending the same amount of actions and you're just using your chance to hit instead of your rolling intimidation. So this is good if you're not using intimidation at all, I guess. It fills that kind of role, but we're building for intimidation, so we don't really need that. Combat grab is some good stuff. Hand free, which we will have. Grabbing isn't probably going to be our best thing, but since we are doing athletics, we will be good at it, so it's not terrible. It's always good to have an option to lock things down so you can just grab them, pin them in place for a little bit. As a martial character, especially as a fighter, that should be part of your job. You hit, you do tons of damage, and sometimes you have to give that up a little bit to do some control. Skill feat, you're either going to want to just choose like intimidation stuff or choose the healing stuff if you want to really double down on the healing bit. Because what's more egotistical than a fighter who does all the damage, tanks all the damage, and heals themselves? I don't need no healer. I am a self-sufficient beatdown machine. And then if we're going to do that, we need to do medicine, because you really start to fall behind on the medicine stuff if you do not pick up the first 2 powerful medicine feats. Because those 2 skill feats basically make it all worthwhile, because it does not work very well without them. I almost always choose fleet as my first general feat, because most general feats are pretty terrible. Like, yes, you can choose any skill feat, but a general feat is worth more than a skill feat, specifically because skill feats cannot be general feats. So, unless you absolutely need to get a skill feat, I would say always choose a general feat. So, always choose fleet unless you have a specific, like, adopted ancestry and or ancestral paragon kind of thing you want to pick up extra first level stuff that you couldn't, because maybe you'll have some really good stuff, but we don't really at the moment. We could pick up some of the armor ones, but we're going to be getting those pretty soon through multi-classing stuff. So we go fleet, because speed is always good. Always. Now we're going to start having some trouble, because we've got a lot of good options for us. Actually, you know what? I can't do that. Instead of combat grab, we're just going to go straight into Dragon Ravager for the damage boost. I keep thinking I have a character that picks that stuff up at level 4 because she specifically is meant to stay in humanoid form for a while for story stuff. But I figure if you just want to make your generalist character that's really good at beating stuff down, then by level 2, you can drop all your human gear, sell it, and just go dragon form. Because you get that. Your AC will kind of suck at that point, but that's just how it is. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Because we got to pick up Ravager Scales. Bam. And you have to pick up the good, bam, Ward Medic. Makes it so you can do multiple targets. Actually, is it continual? Yes, continual first. You need both of these feats just to be decent at this. But unless you want to drop battle medicine, which battle medicine is really good stuff. Because healing in combat is rather difficult, whereas healing out of combat just takes time. And then we're just going to boost all of our primary stuff. And we can't do that, so we're going to do intimidation. So we can try to lower enemies with our frightened debuff. And then smoke vision is super cool. The only problem is, since the rest of your party isn't going to have this, trying to use this hurts your party. If you're starting fires everywhere specifically to benefit you and hurt the enemy, it's also going to hurt your party, which is aggravating that there are like super cool things that if you tried to use them often, unless your whole party has a way to also get the similar ability, you're not actually helping anybody. Scent is always fantastic. I think at 30 feet is kind of an unfortunate limitation to it, but scent is always good just to know that, hey, there's invisible stuff around me. Because most things are, by the time you hit like level 6, at least, most things are going to probably have over 30 feet of move speed. So even with just a single move action, they will get to you. So things will be out of your scent range and then be able to hit you before you'll be able to notice them. So that kind of makes scent trash in a lot of ways. I mean, unless you are the kind of GM who specifically just says, oh, well, there's no monster who can pick up the swift sneak feat, so all monsters, all NPCs, all enemies you will ever face automatically move at half speed when sneaking, because they're only heroes have the swift sneak ability, unless specifically noted in their stat block. Then sure, maybe 30 feet might be enough, but that's still, if something wanted to move twice to get to you, they probably could. I don't know. I think like 50 or 60 feet for this ability would have been much better. It also kind of, I like the idea that you can use scent to track. So you would definitely need more than 30 feet on that, I would think. But a lot of that is just stuff your GM can hand wave if that's how they feel. But for invisible things that are standing next to you hitting you, scent is good, because then you'll know exactly where they are. Still won't be able to hit them very well, but you'll know where they are. And then this is kind of interesting, because you don't actually have the brawling group, but your unarmed attacks specifically track your highest value, I believe, unless they fixed that so it's just your regular value. But I think most GMs would say if you take brawling, then yeah, all your dragon unarmed stuff would be at your highest value. Otherwise, dragon characters would be at a distinct disadvantage as fighters. Is there anything we want at this level? Shatter Defenses is kind of cool for later on, once you are constantly having things frightened, because it'll make them flat-footed so long as they're frightened. And once you get Dread Runes to make it so that things stay frightened for more than just a single round, then this can be useful. It is press, which kind of sucks. Most press feats are pretty terrible, but this one's fairly decent. Advantageous Assault is good for a little bit. until we get other stuff. Same with Swipe. Swipe's pretty cool. And Knockdown is fantastic. But we're hard pressed for awesome feats because we want Bite of Opportunity, which for a fighter kind of sucks because we already have Attack of Opportunity. So this sort of is wasteful at this level. So if you just want to come back and retrain this for later, that's cool. Devastating Bite is just power attack, so not great. Draconic Frenzy is pretty good. Draconic Breath is always good. Draconic Advance is decent if you find you need to rush at stuff a lot. But you could swap your first level feat to charge. But Frenzy's good for lots of attacks. So we'll take that. And you can kind of see now, because the dragon feats are really great, how when you add free archetype to this, it gets a lot better. And then we should be able to up our medicine. We get another general feat, which 99 times out of 100 for me, when I'm making a character, I always choose at level 7 Untrained Improvisation. Because it gives you plus to level to all of your skills, which is just fantastic. It will never allow you to sometimes even have a chance at doing on-level tasks, but like anything else, it'll give you at least a chance of doing it. And even on-level stuff, you might have to roll like a 17 or above, or sometimes a 19 or above, but at least you have a chance. Whereas if you're not adding your level 10 of your skills, you have a 0% chance of ever succeeding. And by the time you hit level 10, you'll generally have a very low chance of failing and almost always crit fail, which is super, super bad. So Untrained Improvisation, I value it extremely high. Just because you don't ever want to be caught in a situation where it's like, oh, I have to use occultism to do something. Oh, I have +0 to it. And I'm level 10. So instead of, the DC being 23 and I'm getting a +0, well, what does that mean? That means I cannot succeed without getting a 20. That is bad. Whereas if you have plus level, then you'd have a +10 to it. And it's like, all right, I just need like a 13 or above. That's not bad at all. And then, when you get to like level 14 and 16 and stuff, you'll have to have Master or Legendary and have like a +4 from your skill and a +1 from an item bonus just to be able to hit like an on-level difficult kind of thing. So even with plus to level, it's difficult. Whereas without plus to level, crit fail every time. And since you only get 3 skills that you can max out, I don't like the idea specifically in Pathfinder 2 where every character is supposed to bring different skills so that you can, as a party, have everything covered. And it's like, that's a cool idea and everything, but what happens when you get split up? What happens when, you're retelling your story to the king because you came across a dire threat to his rule or whatever, and he's like, okay, tell me your story. I'm going to cut your head off because you are wasting my time. And whoever, is front in line, you have no diplomacy. And the king's like, tell me the story. One of the, your face tries to step forward and the guards are like, sit your ass down. Then you as the bumbling freaking barbarian or fighter with no diplomacy and no charisma have to stumble through trying to tell this story. You are going to fail. And so there's just so many situations where it probably won't ever come up, but I like being prepared for stuff. So I highly value Untrained Improvisation. But Toughness is also a super good choice because that gives you 7 extra hit points at that level, which is not nothing. And it keeps getting better with time. Also, by this Is it level 8? We also... Nope, level 9 we get combat flexibility. So we gotta see if there's any dragon feats we need here. Yep, we want to be bigger. Bigger is good. Love bigger. Did we miss a skill feat? Yes, we did. This needs to be our other healing one, Ward Medic. And then this one can be our Intimidation one. You'll also want to get Godless Healing at some point because it's super good. I don't like Terrifying Resistance. Intimidating Prowess is stupid strong. Like, if you have Strength and are using Intimidation, you can get a +2 bonus. You start off at +1 once you're able to get it, and it's a circumstance bonus, so it'll stack with your item bonuses from your like Banshee Mask and all that sort of stuff, and from any status bonuses you might get for stuff. It's so good. It's probably one of the big reasons why Scared to Death is so strong. It's because you get a free +2 that most skills don't get a free circumstance +2. Can't do that. And we want this. Oh, BBDBD. Energized Jaws is pretty cool, but Tenacity is freaking amazing. Increase your maximum hit points and get temp. It's so good. Antipodal Duality would probably be better for this character if you wanted to take any of the meta breath stuff. So it's kind of a choice between, do you want to have a little bit more health and survivability to tank more, or do you want to have more options for your breath weapon? But this also means you have to take those options, which we probably won't have the feats for. Because it requires like 2 level 18 feats and a level 16 feat at the end to get all that stuff. But at this level, we get combat flexibility, which gives us a free feat of 8th level or lower. And you'll probably take like knockdown or whatever you want your primary attack to be, because knockdown is super good. When we buff our normal spread, which you might, there's no real where else to put it in this build, but we're going to run into the problem of at level 20 we're gonna have leftover. But we don't really need any other points in anything, so oh well. And this, we are going to need our level 10 combat reflexes. An additional attack of opportunity, because that is stupid good. And for a feat, Terrified Retreat is pretty good. Battle Cry is decent. The thing about Terrified Retreat is that if you manage to get into situations where you're next to something, or, well, something's within your reach, and then you put Frightened on it, on its next turn, it has to run away from you, which will trigger your attack of opportunity. So it kind of makes you want to wait to frighten stuff until you're within reach, which is interesting because that sort of wastes your early action economy. Unless you're playing an AP in which, you know, most of the time you're going to start within one move action of the enemy, so then it doesn't matter. Then we can start boosting our athletics, so we can grab stuff every once in a great while. And this is where we're going to take toughness if you haven't taken it already. Incredible initiative is usually fantastic, but fighters get that for free, so, you know, fighters are amazing in this. That's all there is to it. I don't think there's any fighter feats we want at 12. Spring attack is decent. Brutal finish is kind of meh. Oh yeah, we need fearsome brute. I think this feat is broken. Like, absolutely catastrophically more powerful than anything almost any other class gets. Because I think it was made when you could not lock things down easily with Intimidate. Because this makes you do twice an enemy's frighten value in bonus damage. And the damage is circumstance, so it stacks with any status damage bonus you might have, which there are a few different ways to get a status bonus. So this is super friggin' powerful. And now that you can get a Dread Rune to have a decent chance of making your fear stick to things longer, so that you can keep something frightened 2 for a good long time, that's a +4 to damage. But then the bonus goes up to 3 once you get Master, which, you know, by level 10, we have Master already. So 3 times something's frightened value. So if you get frightened 1, you're doing 3 extra damage. If you get frightened 2, 6 extra damage per strike. And since we have Dragon Frenzy and stuff, we can reliably make like 3 attacks a round fairly easily. Sometimes even 4. And since we're fighters, we have a good chance of getting multiple hits. So it all stacks up to being a beatdown machine. Then we want to get Godless Healing. It makes it so you can battle medicine yourself once an hour instead of once a day, which is fantastic. You just can't have a deity, which, you know, if you're a dragon, especially for Pathfinder, they didn't really flesh out like a dragon Patreon. Excuse me. Dragon deities, there's just 2. Really, the third isn't even mentioned as a viable option. There's just the Father and the Son. So, whatever. More athletics. So now we could actually grab stuff and reliably do knockdown attacks. Which by this level we need to get improved. So then they're automatic. Then we will pick up Frightful Presence so that we can get Frightened 4 every once in a great blue moon. Can only do it once a day, and they have to get a critical fail, which is very unlikely, but there is a small chance that you can get Frightened 4. Which, after the conversation we just had, is stupid amounts of bonus damage. Get our plus to hit up to maximum. And then let's see. Is there anything we need here? I do not think so. Whirlwind Strike is great, but we do have something we desperately need to pick up from our archetype. which is actually I think it's a level 14. Draconic Reflexes gives you another reaction for Bite of Opportunity, which is why you have to go back and take Bite of Opportunity specifically so you can get this. So once you take that, you retrain your second level skill. No. Empowered size, maybe? It gets difficult because there's too much stuff you want. So I guess the size will have to go. Then we go and get Bite of Opportunity. So you retrain that, and then you have 3 actions around to Bite of Opportunity, which is ridiculously good when you're fearing everything around you, and every time you fear something, they have to run away from you. Great stuff. Especially if you can get your allies to do fear as well. Get things running around, and you just get lots of attacks. And then I don't think there's anything else we desperately need for a skill feat. So at this level, you can take whatever you want. Mortal Healing is decent. Terrifying Resistance it's all right. It's just like a +1. It's not great. Battle Cry is really good. You have to be within like 30... You have to start a combat within 30 feet of something, because that's the range of fright, of Intimidate, I believe. Demoralize, rather. And you can also use a reaction to Demoralize when you critically hit. So you have cool options there. It's a pretty good feat. But you don't really need it. It just gives you some more good options. Then it's, I think, our last general feat. We are going to have Incredible Investitures. Decent. It just allows you to have a lot of items. Or Canny Acumen is awesome. This allows you to shore up your saves, or you can make yourself... I actually don't remember. Do fighters max out at expert or master perception? It might only be expert, so that'll get you master perception, which is an extra +2 to initiative, or +2 to reflex saves, whichever you desire. Doesn't kick in to level 17, though, so it's just sitting there, unless you want to choose anything else and then retrain. Or just find something else that you like better. All we get is Overwhelming Blow at this level, which isn't really anything we want. When there's a ton of stuff we want over here. We want to be able to fly. And this is just take whatever you want. Do we have... Yeah. We should have this. So we take the most powerful feat in the skill feat in the game with Scared to Death, which is actually stupidly overpowered. Like, I didn't think it was all that great at first, because the first character I made that used it had to do like a few rerolls to get it to work. But then in the last game I was playing through, the whole party had it. 3 members of the party had scared to death. So, yeah, most enemies did not stand a chance. If they made both of their saves once, they wouldn't do so again, and definitely not a third time. There isn't really good max level skill feat for medic, but you need it just to up your healing. And the benefit for having max level athletics isn't very great, because we can just get that normally. And we want this so that we can do Frightful Presence once per hour instead of once per day. So you can keep trying to hit that tier 4 Frightened and just beat the ever-loving crap out of something. By this level, yeah, we have improved in flexibility, so we'll have 2 free feats, which we can put as knockdown and improved knockdown. So knockdown will be our primary attack by this level. So we're always knocking somebody on their ass, frightening them, and then pummeling their face. And then every time they get up, we get a free attack. And then if they try to run away, we get another free attack. Savage Critical is pretty stupid. Like, as a fighter, you should always be critting on a 19. Unless you're fighting something that is immune to frightened and you can't reliably get it flat-footed and all this other stuff, so that you just don't have a decent chance to hit it, then this could maybe be useful. But this is like, hey, if you're fighting a boss that's going to beat you into the ground, this might be useful. Otherwise, you're never going to get any use out of this feat. Like, literally never. So why bother? I think it's way too high level for what it is. Swashbucklers get this as like a level 17 class feat, I think, and it works a lot better on them because they don't have the +2 to hit as baseline. So I don't think there's anything else we really want here. There's always stuff we want here. Lethal Claws is the exact same thing for claws, which, since any class can take this, it makes sense that this is a thing. Still terrible for fighters, though. Furious Momentum is decent. The Frenzy's pretty cool. Dragon Heat is fantastic for red dragons. Everything around you is just taking damage. Just take damage. But it's also like, well, we're level 18, so that damage isn't going to be very good. And there's definitely something we do want. We want to at least be large by this level. Then we get our last legendary feat. Actually, no. This is the useless legendary feat. Legendary Medic. It does so little. Like, it just makes it so you can cure stuff out of combat, whatever. And it's just like, nah, that doesn't really matter too much. It's not, like, general purpose useful, which is unfortunate. And we get Athletics, which is also going to be fairly useless to us, but it's going to be there just in case. And our last general feat, you're either going to want incredible investiture if you have a lot of invested items. Which, you know, since rings of resistance are invested, just pick this so you can have like 5 rings. This gives you an extra 2 resist rings you can pick up. Unless you want to take Ancestral Paragon. They're both pretty good choices. Come on. Ooh. And then we have both of those do nothing, so we get a plus to both of those, which don't really help us at all. Then... yeah, oh, nope, not that one. Where is... there we go. Boundless Reprisals. Because this is great. Get an attack of opportunity every time an enemy has a turn. The only downside to this is we only have the 1 reaction. Well, actually, we have 2 reactions. We also have our critical reaction. So every time, if we take Boundless Reprisals, that means every time we crit, we could do a free Intimidate check on something, which is pretty cool. But otherwise, you'd want to make sure that your party has decent ways of making sure you can trigger attack of opportunity all the time. Otherwise, I might suggest ultimate flexibility just for an additional feat. And that's an extra attack. Which is also pretty decent for fighters. Since you're already getting a lot of bonus to damage, this will allow you to Draconic Frenzy and then make like 2 more attacks. Which is always cool. And then we get Cloud Jump, which just makes you jump easy. Jumps are limited to your speed, so like the name Cloud Jump is very disingenuous, because you can still only jump your speed. You can either walk 30 feet forward or you can jump 30 feet forward, and that's it. Cloud Jump just makes it so that you don't have to land at 30 feet. You could then choose to go 60 feet and 90 feet before landing. It's literally all it does, which is cool if you need that. If you need to jump 90 feet instead of 30 and then 30 and then 30. But otherwise, as a legendary feat, it's pretty underwhelming. Which is really an issue, I think, in the game. That some things sound really cool, but when you think about the actual limitations of them, they're nonsensically limited. So that's your 20th level of a really powerful, melee beatdown character. And so from here, we're going to go through and reshape everything a little bit with free archetype, which will 100% make this character a fair amount stronger. So keep that in mind, that this is going to become a stronger build. Just because having Draconic Ravager as your free dedication is just powerful. So level 2 instead, we will choose... Lunge is pretty interesting. And I don't... depends how we go. But we definitely want Draconic Ravager to get that extra damage. And then we want to pick up Swipe. Swipe or Quick Reversal. Quick Reversal is pretty cool if you get flanked, and it'll become better and better once we get larger, because then it'll be easier for enemies to flank you, which means you'll be able to do a press attack and do 2 attacks at the same time, which is pretty cool. Especially for a dragon, you're just like, oh, I bite this one guy and smack this other guy behind me with my tail at the same time for one action. That's pretty good. Yeah, but we're going to be taking knockdown because that's cornerstone of our build. This allows you to take more variety of stuff with flexibility. So you can actually change it up instead of using it as your core. Then I'm not sure if there's anything we really want for fighter feats at this level. Yeah. So we'll pick Bite of Opportunity. And then with a free archetype, we'll go ahead and go down to Marshall. Because it is a very strong buffing option for very little investment. Then level 8 for class feeds, we shall choose... Resounding Bravery is not terrible. It just depends if you're actually getting any use out of it. We don't have a two-hander, so we can't even do that, which is unfortunate. Blind fighting is pretty fantastic. Things can't actually be hidden from you. Then we need Dread Martial Stance. Dread Martial Stance is stupid powerful. Gives you a +1 to damage per damage die you have, which will stack onto your fear-based damage because this is status. So it's just more bonus damage to all your attacks, and you're really good at making lots of attacks. And we got combat reflexes, which is definitely needed. And then we go into empowered size to get bigger, which is a buff in damage capabilities and opportunities to hit attack of opportunity. And then for this level, we need ancient size to get even bigger. And then see if we need anything from fighter. Whirlwind Strike is pretty good. It's kind of much better with a two-hander, but since you're going to be of huge size at this point, that'll allow you to whirlwind everything. You think giant barbarians are good at whirlwind? It's like, ha! Dragons get better. And then make sure we take Ravager's Wings. Stance Savant is a level 14 feat to save you one action at the beginning of combat. Like, since a lot of combats will be only 3 or 4 rounds, that's a decent save, because then you can move and then, like, Draconic Frenzy or something. Because this will allow you to get into Dread Martial Stance and then move and then Draconic Frenzy for a ton of damage. But I don't know. For 14th level feat, I don't think it's all that strong. Determination is decent, but it's once a day, and most dailies are pretty damn bad. So I would say we can leave that as Ravenger's Wings and go over here. We still haven't taken Breath of the Dragon, which we probably should at some point. This is a fairly decent thing. The problem is it gets one save and then it becomes immune for 24 hours, which really irritates me. And it has to fail to have any effect. But it's up all the time. So, you know, either choose Fear Aura or Heat Aura. Either constant damage or a chance at fear. And you can also use this with your other Fear Auras. So it's basically like you have a passive field aura, and then you have a put your effort into it Fear Aura. Do we need any level 18 feet? The answer is going to be no. We don't really need anything there. Which is good, because there's a couple more things here we want to get. Like Worm Size. You get Hajuj. And Gargantuan. It's so good. Furious Momentum. I'm not sure if that will actually add damage. I think Forceful gives you a circumstance damage, which we already have a much better circumstance damage. That's not supposed to be there. So either Heat, or if you find your large size is a problem, take Adjust Size so you can shrink yourself down to fit into anything you want. And then this, I don't think it's anything else. So take Heat, because why not? Or W Resistance, which is actually pretty good. Did we not pick Frenzy? Uh-oh. I may have made a mistake. I thought we had Frenzy up here. What happened? Ravager there. Scales there. Bite of Opportunity and Marshall. Huh, we didn't actually take Frenzy. Well, it's a good thing we can change this. So we need Ravager at 2. We do not need Lunge. So since we already have Ravager at this level, we can then not take anything because of the way Ravager is built. Frustrating. you'll just have to get... Wait. What? Now I'm confused. Scales. Oh, it's a level 6 feet, that's why. Okay, so... We do need Bite of Opportunity, but we need it... We can get it later. We never took Breath, which is also unfortunate. And then, well, I guess we can get rid of Blind Fighting. We already have Scent, so that makes Blind Fighting slightly less useful, but not really. Blind Fighting is still amazing. It's not what we're looking for. We're looking for Bite. Alrighty. There, we fixed it. Now we have no errors. And our last feat can be... Gather Frenzy. So either Dragon Heat, Gathering Frenzy, or Bullying Frenzy isn't terrible. You can make a trip as part of your flurry, and we're pretty good at trips. But otherwise, just knockdown attack first. But this sort of makes knockdown attack not so good, because this gives you 3 attacks for 2 actions instead of just 1. Well, 2 attacks and a actual trip. But they're still getting the negatives of your multiple attack penalty. Or Stunning Frenzy. You have cool options to pick from. So that is your completed massive beatdown monster of a Red Dragon fighter. So, yes, free archetype makes dragons stronger because the dragon archetype just has a lot of power options in it because they're supposed to be used as class feats. But I still think it fits. You want your dragon characters to feel powerful. And I would say it's not a bad thing, really, if your dragon characters are slightly stronger than your non-dragon characters. Because you can just make sure that the player who's playing those characters puts themselves out on limbs more, you know? Make sure that they're striving hard to protect the rest of the group and taking on more challenges and striving to keep the group safe. If they're using that power in a good way instead of being, hey, look at this, I can kill everything while you guys are sitting there twiddling your dicks. Like, you know, it's all about player perspective and just making sure that everybody is happy with how things are. And maybe you might have a player who doesn't like that one character is stronger than the others. But I think those kind of players might not realize that Pathfinder 2 isn't entirely, fantastically balanced in that area. They strived really hard for it, but I think they failed pretty badly because I think most casters are fantastically weak, and even most martial characters do not measure up in combat capability to a barbarian or fighter. So, like, if you want to just win fights, you play as a barbarian or a fighter. If you want to have a little bit of cool flavor, then you can choose other martials, but they will never be as good as a fighter or barbarian, and the things they get in exchange will not be as useful. That is the big problem, is all the other stuff you can build with other martials just will not measure up and be as useful as killing the enemies faster. It just doesn't. So, but we will get into all those classes soon. So, for now, go out and make some beat down red dragons or gold dragons. Gold dragons also get bite of opportunity, whereas many other dragons don't, which can cause a problem. And maybe just use this as your baseline. Maybe you don't want lots of bites of opportunity because you don't have a group that can force move things around and trigger it. But this is a great baseline for an extremely powerful character that will get you through most APs. So go out there and have fun, young dragons.